There you go.
What are those for?
Those are jelly beans. They're for the show today, but they're not for eating.
Oh.
You have some healthy green beans in front of you.
Is that...
You are...
How good's this going to sound?
Oh my god, that's beautiful. These green beans, oh god, I claim it. So first off, the jelly beans are for looking out forlornly, but I need to warn you that I had this thing with raw beans and lettuce. When I think about like eating it, my nose curls up and I get like my face scrunches up. It's awful. It's awful. And that is going to be me this entire episode, just thinking about eating these beans.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Alrighty.
oh, gross.
Well, welcome.
They're so wet.
Welcome to the bean episode, the true bean episode.
Not that bad, actually.
I like to say, behind the packet of beans that you've dumped here,
Jelly beans, yeah.
I have the original candle that we lit on the first day of recording Umineko.
And now we're going to finish it?
It's going to be. It's got a tiny bit of wax at the bottom, and I
Okay.
might try to light it to end the video.
Okay.
But
It's
it
a
may be
vigil.
deceased.
A silent vigil.
I've lit a alternate candle just in case it doesn't work, just so we can keep the same atmosphere. But I brought this companion with us after all these months, after all these years, because we are at the end of Higurashi. Welcome to the second recap. The first recap would have gone up about an hour before this. Coming up in about an hour for us as we record this, we're going to be doing The Last Express.
Oh my god, I'm
which
so
you should
excited.
see on the channel a few days before this
It's
video.
like everything is happening at once. It's crazy because like The Last Express was like the first game that got me into murder mystery, and then Higurashi got me like into storytelling.
Yeah.
It was made me like excited about like reading books and watching movies again. And Umineko got me into doing this YouTube nonsense and all
I
this
know.
creative stuff. So it's like all three of my favorite adventure stories and mystery stories brought into one beautiful day.
Alrighty. Well, before we begin, Herds,
Yeah.
I normally save the points for later, but
Oh.
I don't have some great bit to save the points for like I did
okay.
at the end of Umineko. So I wanted
No, that's
to
right.
chuck
No-
over to this
no
comment
boxes.
from
God.
Loz246789.
Shout out to Loz.
And I thought we could do a dramatic reading.
I was
of
going to
this.
say, we want to take line by line?
Yeah, I feel like it has to be you for this opening line.
Okay. Is the cat in the truck alive or dead? Was there ever a cat? Is the truck worth the trade or not? Was there ever a truck? Is Ryukishi a truck thief or not? Was there ever a Ryukishi? Frederica Berncastle.
A miracle occurs when everyone believes in it. It's hard doing this bit with the green beans in my mouth.
It's okay, it's half the fun.
Let me just...
They're pretty good. I decided I was going to buy like 6 of them, but I decided to buy more like 2 dozen because I figured they'd last us the whole way through.
Yeah. A miracle occurs when everyone believes in it. To believe that something means to be able to bet on something with everything you have. But what does it mean to bet everything? When baking a cake, you may use up what you perceive to be your last ingredients in the cupboard if you're running low on supplies, but it's very rare to be able to use up literally everything. You might have a little extra flour left over, a spare egg, some other ingredients you're not quite sure what to do with. The cake is already going to turn out fine. To add more ingredients would upset the delicate balance of the recipe, but if you could just find a use for these final ingredients, perhaps you could bake a cake beyond your imagination to achieve an ideal, miraculous ending. Pause for green bean.
God.
This was the situation that Jacrono and Magus, Ben and Felix, Flex and Herds found themselves in.
Oh, God.
The cake was a point score capable of overpowering Ryukishi's certain will. The ingredients, a 400-point bet. The ideal miraculous ending, winning with a truck in tow.
Damn right.
Technically speaking, they didn't need the 400 points to win. In the final moments of Matsuri Bayashi, many points had been awarded due to the flexibility of the rules established. This was a game board of their own creation, and the rules favored them as such. If they so wished, a miracle could become a certain miracle. And yet, winning without the truck just isn't an option. The other YouTuber nodded resolutely, taking 5 points for that ambiguous line. To not gamble for the truck would be to give up, to leave the game incomplete, to stop thinking of how to bake the perfect cake. They had to take the truck for themselves while they still had a chance. Oh, fuck, I got a green bean on the microphone. Hold on, I gotta clean this
You've
off.
ruined everything.
Oh, fuck.
You've ruined it.
Their hearts united, they entered the truck and turned the key. Would they be able to drive off to their desired future where they have both the points and the truck? Gakonia Phase 2 releases and Ryukishi stops repeating himself when the truck engine cries. This is you now.
I got the truck engine. Sorry, I had bean in my mouth.
Me too.
Delicious.
This
The problem
was
is
such a
that
mistake.
the problem is that like it breaks up in your mouth, so it's difficult to actually swallow the whole thing when you need to. You always it's like you always have a little bit of green bean in your mouth. It's like truck wood. It's anyway. The truck engine did not cry. In fact, when the key turned, no noise was made at all. The pair got out of the truck and went round to the front for potential issues. After digging around a bit, they found a horrifying sight. The engine was missing. Stolen, in fact. They had the truck, but not the truck's heart. Under their noses, Ryukishi had come in at the last minute and had made the truck effectively useless, like a puppet with its strings cut.
Well,
end scene. End scene.
I think what this implies is that
We fucked up?
the truck is worth no points.
Okay.
We have 1,584 points.
Yep.
Ryukishi now has 1,131 points.
Oh my god.
We've just lost. We've just lost 400 points.
Yeah, but it was worthless.
But
So-
we took 400 points, remember, but it's
Okay.
now been proven to be worthless.
What?
So
Okay.
we now have 1,184 points. Ryukishi's 1131
Yeah.
at the star,
Yeah.
which means
So
that,
he wins an A for effort, but we win the points race, is what I'm hearing.
well, that depends on how much the star is worth.
How do we figure that? How do we possibly determine how much a star is worth?
Well, what you didn't realize all those months ago,
Oh
Herds,
god.
is that this star all along has had its points value printed on it
Oh,
in
no.
such tiny text
Oh no.
that you can't see it in
Okay.
normal videos. But if
Yeah.
we zoom in, and I'm going to zoom in editing right
Oh,
here,
let's have a look.
you will see
Uh-huh.
that this says
Mm-hmm.
800 points.
Oh my god.
I think Ryukishi has just absolutely cleaned the house with us.
I can't believe it. I can't believe he would do such a fucking turnaround on us. I could say that in this video. Such a turnaround on us, F-wording against us. Because look, we were sure to win. Even without the engine, he thought,
I know.
you know, we're gonna win.
Now, the thing is, that means that our score is 1 win to Ryukishi in Higurashi.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And 1 win to us from Umineko,
Okay.
which means that we're on even ground.
Okay.
And thus,
Yeah. Where are you going
we
with
have
this?
to,
What is
by
the bit here?
contractual
What is happening?
obligation,
Yes.
have a rematch
Oh god.
by continuing and watching both of the animes that we've missed.
Oh my god. We have to.
I think what we should do
Uh-huh.
is we should watch Kai. We should finish that.
I agree.
And that'll take us through to when the next
was gonna say,
season
surely-
of the reboot
surely-
anime launches.
The new battleground is Go and
Whatever
and
the one after that's
Sato
called.
or
That's
Sushi.
something like that.
Something about Satoshi pre-shop.
All
Let's
right.
go.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the rematch announcement. We're starting the points up.
It's happening.
Whatever horse shit Ryukishi does in either of his animes, we're gonna have to come up with new rules, which we can rig in our favor.
Yeah.
Just for the record. But
We have to win this.
We're gonna have to come up with new rules.
We have
We'll
to
talk
win this
about them in the
with
next
truck.
video.
We also need to steal back the engine for our truck. That also has to happen
That
somehow.
is true.
So keep an eye out in those animes
So if
for
we
truck
see
engines.
a truck,
If we see a truck engine,
all right.
let's make that stipulation. If a truck engine cries, we get it. We
All right.
steal it from him.
Now it's time to actually do a recap.
Oh, okay. Adam, what do you want to say?
I was very interested with the pacing of this arc
Uh-huh.
in the edit because the first time through, it felt incredibly lethargic, like
Yeah.
the most lethargic of any of the arcs. But going back through and editing, whether that's because I took the time to just do it 1 episode a week, really pace myself out.
Definitely not having to do the voices and like figure out what's going on all the time definitely helps as well. I definitely think that the pacing of the VN it's not the same as the anime. I think the anime does a really good job of keeping things flowing when we watch it. Eventually you'll see that. But yeah, like the VN does it's not completely terrible, like it doesn't feel as slow when you're not trying to like produce it as content. And I mean, we had the same experience, I think, with Umineko's finale, not to get into that too much, but like that also was a series of episodes that was just too long. There was so much stuff happening. And as we talked about, Ryukishi feels the need to like have a scene for every single character, except for, Keiichi and Renna, because he doesn't care about them, obviously. But like, he's like, let me just have a scene for every character, like wrap up every single thing. And it's great as long as you're not worrying about like, where is the end though? Like if you're not trying to like get to the end, I feel like it's a lot more palatable, I guess.
No, I think all in all though, going back and kind of rewatching Arc 1 and seeing the way that it uses the club games,
Oh my God.
I still don't like the club scenes in terms
Screw
of
you.
their actual delivery, but
They are the
but
best.
They pay off, so I cannot complain and say that they're
With Old Maid.
actually bad and incoherent or
Because
anything.
they play Old
Those-
Maid, and therefore there are no losers. Literally, the fact that these characters, like, it's the line that Mion says where she's explaining, like, she's like, what is the club about? She's like, we prepare for challenges in our future by da-da-da-da-da, and like going through hardships together, and like she's literally explaining the plot of the story to you. And Rika says, well, we just kind of have fun and like hang out. But she's also the one who has the most like perspective on what's going on. So there's like another layer there. But yeah, no, I really like the club games. I don't know. I can see how for somebody who does not like read a lot of visual novels like this, you might get sick of them. They are very Japanime. But it's that balance between light and dark that I've always appreciated about Higurashi. That's my favorite like part of the story. The way that the way that Ryukishi, through all of his works, blends two completely opposite concepts in such a seamless way that like brings out the best in either of them. You know?
Yeah, I think what stood out to me the most was that really it's just a great symbol, I suppose, for why you want your stories to actually give them the full time that they ask of you. Because, like,
Yeah.
Arc 1 of Higurashi is trash in so many ways that don't pay off until what was for us
much
like
later.
160 some hours
Well,
later.
that's the thing. That's why, like, I know you're going to disagree with me, but, like, Arc 1 is still probably my favorite. Like, maybe Arc 6 is, like, just edges out a little bit because of all the Renner stuff, but, like, Arc 1, to my mind, so perfectly, like, sets up the entire story. And the themes and, like, the characters and all the different twists and turns and things are hinted at, you know, in subtle ways. So I don't know. And, like, just, like, the tragedy of its finale really hits me even when I go back and, like, watch it again, you know?
No, I agree. And it's, you know, it's more to say that, like, as you say, the content in there, the more Japanime stuff, the more just dancing around the games and slapstick stuff isn't my vibe. But that doesn't mean that
Sure.
I don't get it and I don't enjoy it.
Well, it's like, I don't know, I might do a bad job of explaining this, but like, it's a Dojin game. Like, it's a game made by someone without any oversight, without any overhead. And as we've discussed repeatedly, that leads to a lot of problems with Ryukishi's works. He's like lack of confidence in delivering on dialogue and certain exposition topics. But it also means that he can like do exactly what he wants to do. And I think that there's a purity and like something admirable about that. That's like a big part of why people are drawn to his works, because when you go and you sit down, you read a Ryukishi work, like you can tell it's his because it has the same faults every goddamn time, but it also has this exact same charms. And you know that every little detail that he's put down, even if, you know, when you're reading through Arc 1 of Higurashi or Episode 1 of Umineko, you know those different details are going to come back around in some way. So you have faith in him, right? In our Lord Ryukishi.
No, and I think the other thing that became obvious to me in editing and going back through was kind of the enormous confidence that Ryukishi must have had in putting out not only the Fragments game, but still having the full arc behind that.
Oh god, yeah.
Because I feel like there generally would have been a lot of people who would have just given up or like, you know, I mean, as we did, look up the full list
Look,
to get to the end of it.
it was worth it in the end. It saved us so much time on the production end. I have no problems with that. But yeah, like it's very admirable for him to say, "I'm going to play a game with you. I'm going to give you a challenge and like add double the screen time to this arc, rather than just telling you, I want you to like participate in the story."
Yeah.
You know?
No, and it's really interesting because when you look at how this tails off into Umineko, you know, not to spoil anything about that because we'll get into that at the end of this recap,
spoil it.
obviously.
Oh god. That's like a week-long discussion in itself, but yeah, I'm into it.
We're not going to do a week-long discussion today. We've got a stream to do after this.
It's true.
But the thing that was really interesting there is seeing a lot of just the terminology and phrasing that he would then come to use later down the line. Even if it's been translated differently, you can still hear...
You can hear the echo. You can hear the echoes in Umineko of Higurashi, and as I've talked about in Umineko, actually, the fact that he uses characters and concepts and phrases from Higurashi in order to echo the previous work and to both criticize and elevate the previous work in equal measure, like it's wonderful. You know, it's so incredibly admirable.
Hold on, let's do a quick bean break.
Bean break.
Just let me get the sound real good here. Oh, that was a good one. That was a good one.
Give me a bean.
Really felt the bean on that.
I know. I mean, that's how beans should feel. Well, the best part is, hold on, bean break. I need to explain. I actually literally bought these on my way to Flex's house because he doesn't live that close to a supermarket, at least as far as I know. So I was like, I'll pick up a bag of beans on the way over. And so these are the freshest beans you'll ever get. I got them at midday, so new shipment in the morning in the supermarket. Brought them into Flex's house to put them through a strainer, washed them all up. They're nice and moist, ready to go. We're currently earning trading cards on the Last Express because you've got it open. That's great. That's terrible. It's so awful that you've got that open right now. But yeah.
Had to make sure it worked.
Okay, I mean, fair enough. I know why you left it open, but whatever. But yeah, these are the freshest beans you're ever going to eat, so enjoy them.
I will. I think the other thing that I really enjoyed about the way that this arc kind of worked out was how every character got their spotlight, except Renner.
Except Renner.
We spoke about this in the last recap.
How do you feel about it now? Because you were like pushing back on me last time we spoke. Do you agree with me now? Do you still feel like, you know, Renner didn't really need a spotlight because you had hers in Arc 6? Like, how do you feel?
You know what I think happened upon reflection, upon going back and editing?
Yeah.
I think Ryukishi thought to himself, oh goodness, I don't have an editor. I need to contain myself. What's the one thing that I'm most likely to overdo? Yeah. Giving Renner too much screen time.
So
and he went so hard in the other direction.
She does nothing. It's so sad. I'm glad that you've like, I don't know if you've come around to my opinion or not, but like I am very, that is the one thing
I always
that
agreed that she definitely didn't have enough screen time. I just said it didn't bother me.
It bothers me. It's the one thing that is like frustrating to me because he goes to such incredible lengths and like inflates the playtime by so much by giving a piece of the action to every single character, except for Renner and a little bit of Keiichi. Keiichi doesn't have as much of a spotlight as I would expect. But as you say, he did just have a huge thing in Arc 7, dealing with Setoko. So, you know, getting the band together and helping her out. But Renner just gets nothing.
Yeah.
She gets a couple subtle moments in Arc 7 and maybe one in Arc 8. But other than that, like, she's done after Arc 6. And yeah, I mean, that's why, not to repeat myself too much, but that's why I just don't have the same drive to like watch the second season of the anime or read Arc 7 and 8, is that I feel like my main girl just isn't there. She's had her arc.
Yeah.
She's good now, and she doesn't feel the need to like help people out, which is weird because she does a lot of helping out in Arcs 1, 2, and 3. At least she tries to. And that aspect of her character is dropped after she gets like mentally like sorted. It's weird. It's a weird like arc for him to go through in terms of writing her.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I would suggest that perhaps there's more. He feels comfortable in that the audience knows that, so he doesn't feel the need to highlight it as much. So like, when it still does happen in quiet moments, where Renner, states her opinion in Arc 8, you still get moments, but you understand already because you've been through that journey what it means to her.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, I'm not saying that she's not still best girl, but it is, I don't know, I just want a little bit more for her in that final arc, especially since she's on the cover. She's like, I don't have my cleaver in my hands anymore because I'm free of being a horrible murderer that I am a lot of the time.
Well, the other thing, speaking of horrible murderers that I really liked was Takano. I think compared to a lot of the stuff that we've seen Ryukishi being inspired by, and we're covering and will continue to cover that on Death of the Reader at the moment.
Death of the Reader.
While doing our best not to mention Ryukishi because we cannot hold ourselves from the show.
It's going to the point where like we'll have an interview with someone and basically ask them about Ryukishi's works while talking about someone else's works, and then as soon as the recording cuts, we're like, yo, there's this novel that you should read. It's bad.
It's been like 13 interviews in a row now. It's quite terrible.
It's very bad.
Still no one has gotten back to me and said they've read it.
No. Well,
I don't think anyone will.
I don't think they will. It's so hard to get into.
We do warn them that it's like at least 80 hours if you're quick.
It's too much.
Anyway, all that aside, I did like that compared to the stuff Ryukishi's been inspired by.
Bean break.
Compared to that stuff, Ryukishi is a lot more forward about just sticking you both in the head of his villain.
Sure.
And highlighting why his villain was just completely delusional.
Well, he has this dedication to creating human characters, right? Like it's just good writing. I don't have too much to say about it, I guess, but it's just he just treats his villains like they're real people and works backwards from there. So and I mean that comes out even in Arc 1 where like the villain in the short term is Keiichi. You know, like the story of Arc 1 is that a kid gets really like paranoid and delusional about the people around them and decides he has to do something about it. So he kills them, you know, in a horrible, horrible way. Not that dissimilar from what Takano's doing.
Exactly.
But, you know, all the characters in the story, all the characters that do bad stuff, all the characters that become horrible mass murderers have a reason for doing so. And that doesn't mean that, like, we shouldn't, you know, that, like, bad people don't get their comeuppance. Shout out to Teppei. But he goes to lengths to, like, prove to us that there is a reason why these people are hurting and that there are ways in which, you know, we can help them, like psychological help and, like, the help of a friend or a loved one. Shout out to Tomotaki, Flash. Like, he's dedicated to not just presenting a villain and saying, yes, here is my evil villain, and they are the evil person. And that's it. That's their entire character, you know?
I completely agree. And I think that's one of the reasons that, like, when you look back at Arc 3, like, you know, the two demons meeting moment is so much so much more powerful once you've had that context.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Like, it was very easy to follow at the time. Like, yes, these two characters are the evil murdery people in this arc. But then
Everybody
when you
is.
get round to the end of it, you see, like, essentially, this is two facets of the same life story.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, I mean, not just the twin demons, but, like, all the characters in the story are murderers to some extent. And watching them go down different pathways, you know, much in the same way that, you know, if you're, like, playing a video game and you, like, find different ways to progress through the story and you get different scenes and stuff, you, like, see different aspects of these characters and how they could have fallen down the rabbit hole, but also how they could have succeeded. And that's why, you know, coming to the end of Higurashi, its message is so powerful that even Takano, the queen bitch, as it were, can, like, find redemption in some way, even after all the awful things that she's done. Yeah, it's great. I love it.
Well, I don't want to drag us away from Higurashi too early.
Drag break. No, I'm kidding. What is it? What are you doing? You want to drag it
Do
over?
you think it's time to spin over to Umineko spoilers
I don't
to go
know.
full spoilers? Or do we have anything else?
I mean, I always have things to, like, say about Higurashi. I enjoy, like, just chatting about it, but I don't know. I feel like I said most of what I wanted to in the first recap.
Because the last thing I wanted to say is that, like, compared to Umineko, where I felt like I had a voraciously different experience going back through and editing, particularly through my own experience of, like, discovering murder mystery alongside it recontextualized a lot of it for me. Now coming back through Higurashi, it just feels like just feels familiar.
Yeah, sure.
I don't feel as blown away by the things that Ryukishi did, but that's not to say that they aren't super impressive. It's just that when I revisit them, I'm like, oh yeah, this is when I felt this, and I still feel that way.
Yeah, it's a very simple story at the end of the day. Like, as much as Ryukishi is, like, twisting the strands of fate and creating different timelines and all sorts of nonsense and all that sort of thing, but, like, the story itself is very straightforward, you know? The kids have to come together and realize the power of friendship to save the day and make the bad person, like, give up their villainous ways. That's it. That's the story.
We did it, everyone.
Good. We did it. We saved everyone. I mean, until Saikuroshi, but that's something we'll probably have to do down the line. Yeah, as far as I know, we're waiting until there's a proper translation of Saikuroshi, but we'll see. Maybe we'll get impatient.
Yeah, the plan at the moment, as I mentioned earlier, is that we're going to do Kai and we're going to do Go, and then hopefully that'll line up along with the weekly release of
The new
one
anime.
after that.
Yeah.
So that's the intention at the
But
moment.
we'll see. Maybe there'll be more stuff. Ryukishi and you know, everybody over there, the entire production team are just pumping out when they cryo-related properties. You know, I'm just saying, if there's an Umineko anime, fingers crossed that it's terrible and we can shit on it.
Maybe we'll finally have to watch Dean Umineko.
Oh, God. Do we have to? Oh, no.
I think we do. Now, I suppose it's time to jump over to Umineko spoilers.
I'm ready.
And I think that over the past few recaps that we've done for the past few arcs and just talking about Umineko, it's so obvious at this point how many different characters are parallels, how many different themes and ideas are recycled.
Yep. Recontextualized, not recycled. Come on. Get with the program.
What is recycling if not just recontextualizing physical matter?
Recycling? No, get out of life. Recycling, when we talk about it in a novel term, I think refers to like reusing something without giving it like additional weight or context. It's just the same story. Whereas
that's just those people who don't like recycling starting to get in your brain and trying to hurt the environment.
Well, recycling is for nerds and those crazy left wing.
None of that.
Nerds. All right. Point is, I don't know. I do appreciate Umineko. I don't know. Like, the thing is, there's not a lot for me to say at this point. I feel like I said all of what I wanted to say in the Umineko show, like, even, like, hinting at stuff. We're in full spoilers, like, Burn and Lambda are the obvious characters that, like, they're like, let's take the themes and the ideals of the original story and say that they're worthless. Like, they literally are like, Takano, who had certainty, and Riko, who had the power of miracles and all her friends, and the power of friendship. Like, Burn says none of that's real. Lambda says certainty is bullshit. And in a sense, like, they're right. Like, nothing in the world is 100% certain. And miracles don't truly, like, supernatural miracles don't truly happen. But things that look like miracles can happen, and things that look like they're certain can happen, right? Like, things that happen in the past are certain. That's one of the, like, big themes of Umineko as you come through it. Is that, like, when you come out the other side of Umineko, all the events that occurred are certain in that sense. Everything that you've read about, everything that you've had confirmed are certain. And so to have Ryukishi have this dance between these old characters, these XP characters saying, everything that I said in the last story that you read is bullshit.
Yeah.
But then taking the new characters, particularly Angie and Battler and everything that happens there, and being like, yo, actually, those things are real. We just need to think about how to, like, practically apply it to your own life,
Well, the other thing that I like on that front, and particularly with the very end of Higurashi, which I didn't really think about as we were going through it, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, it's a nod forwards or whatever. But
Sure.
I do like the last bit where we have ostensibly Burn and Lambda talking about the game that they've just gone through.
Yeah.
The idea, both that, we lead into Umineko like that, but also that Higurashi is intrinsically, in a way, in this fiction of witches playing games with the universe.
Sure.
It is a worthless world because, sure, Rika escapes her endless fate and goes on to the future, but the Rika in the other parallel world who didn't do that is still there. And who's to say that successful Rika actually escaped?
Yeah. That's one of the, like, big discussion points that I see on the internet is, like, so Rika keeps, like, world hopping, like her present consciousness that changes as she goes to every world, like, it develops. And so does that mean that she's, like, creating worlds as she's moving between them? Does that mean that she's, like, making these worlds worse? If she had just given up after the first death, like, wouldn't that just be one tragic world? Because now the, like, outcome of these 8 arcs is that there's, dozens of worlds where everybody is murdered and dies horribly. And, like, in a sense, is it worth all of those murdered and, like, tragic fates for one world in which there is happiness? That's kind of a question, I guess, that the story raises. Because if she just gives up and it's like, yo, honey, just quit time looping, this isn't worth it, then 10 worlds die, but then there's another 10 worlds to get to a good world. Like. It's the maths of it.
There's like a whole mythology to it there, and I'm sure that Ryukishi has some mental device in his mind for how it works. But really, I kind of just love that it doesn't matter, and it says that none of the story matters.
Well, Higurashi isn't as concrete. We're in the Umineko spoiler section. So, yeah, Higurashi's idea of time looping and, like, the way that Rika is carried across and that sort of thing is not as concrete as the way in which Umineko approaches its time looping and sort of supernatural elements. Like, I could, like, if you just picked a moment in Umineko, like, how does this work? I'd be like, all right, it's written. Like, I could just explain that very simple and straightforwardly with what we know about Umineko as well.
But at the same time, the subtext, arguably text of Umineko, is that that's just how you can interpret stories in the world.
I mean, sure.
So by extension, it says that
Mm-hmm,
Higurashi is effectively a created written story, whether you see that from the level of Ryukishi writing it,
Mm-hmm. Sure.
or like the magical characters in
Sure.
the story writing it.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't really matter because it's more about the way that you interact with the story, the characters interact with the story, and you
Sure.
interact with the characters in the story.
Sure.
And going back to what we talked about at the end of Umineko and the recaps there, we think Umineko is a story about storytelling,
Mm-hmm.
and I like that the way that Higurashi ends essentially sets up that question.
It does. It does. It has the little voice of Byrne being like, so what story should we tell next? What's the next world that we will create with these strands of fate that we've learned how to weave earlier on in Arcade? It's beautiful. I love the way that Ryukishi like brings everything together like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like when we go back and we were talking about how there was, his choice to stick the Arc and the Fragments game together. Mm-hmm. Maybe for him, it was a lens into how he views this story. It's like he treats them as story threads.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm imagining that because the way he talks about it is like you should look through all these different events that may or may not occur and decide in what order they should occur. So that because in Ryukishi's mind, you're creating a world in which all of those events occur at the same time, whereas in Ryukishi's mind, those are all events that might have happened, previously. Bean break. But like those are all events that could have happened and that lead to all of the other arcs, right? Like one of the most basic sort of threads that Ryukishi has is Keiichi going to the funeral in Arc 1, and because he leaves the village, he goes crazy because he leaves the village, and that's what the like parasite does.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit of a wild example, but just because I've been seeing it around the internet a bunch because Nobuo Uematsu recently said that he was like done composing or something like that. But one of the examples I've seen around the internet, also don't believe him.
I won't.
One of the examples I've seen around the internet is talking about how he wrote One Winged Angel from Final Fantasy and how that song in its very proggy energy is just strands of different segments of the song that he like stuck together in different ways to create this arrangement. He wrote the different phrases and then reordered them to make the final tune.
Sure.
And that's just a writing tool that anyone could use. But when you look at the Fragments game and when you look at how Ryukishi uses scenes, reuses ideas, perhaps that gives you an idea of either how Ryukishi creates these stories or how Ryukishi perceives these stories.
Yeah, well, I mean, he talked about both when he made Umineko and when writing Go, which, that's something we're going to watch at some point, but he talks about, Kikonia. There's Kikonia and Go, not that we should mention Kikonia on the show, but when he talked about writing Kikonia, he said that he was... After so many years of development, he was 75% writing up the setup, like the baseline setup. And to my mind, I think that Kikonia has been confirmed as not being a time looping story. Spoilers, but that baseline of like where the different countries sit and the characters and their like what they may or may not do and their motivations. That's like the baseline. And so with Umineko and Higurashi, you can tell that he has a very strong idea of what the baseline is, where all the characters are and what they're doing. Like, even though Irie doesn't show up in Arc 1, you know that he's like, well, he does. Like, he just doesn't show up as Irie. He is just a Kosha doctor with the mountain dogs. And so you can tell that even back then, he like knew that there was this faction of Secret Service people.
Yeah.
And there was a doctor who was like researching the virus and like the virus existed and all that sort of stuff. And that's why the syringe scene is important, all that sort of nonsense. But yeah, with all of his stories, he writes these different strands and these like baseline concepts and doesn't diverge from them. He twists them and changes them and recontextualizes them, but he doesn't change them. He has a very strong commitment to the baseline concepts and themes of his stories, which is really admirable. It's something that I struggle with in my own writing. Just like trying to keep everything focused, even when I'm interested, because like, God, it's literally like I'm always having new ideas and I want to explore those new ideas, but I have to make sure they actually fit with the previous thing I wrote, rather than just going off on a complete other tangent and wasting 4 hours of our time. But yeah, I don't know. I really respect Ryukishi for that, because even even when he's like forced literally by community opinion to rewrite entire arcs of his story, shout to Umineko episode 3, he still keeps everything on that baseline that he wrote up and pushes forward with those
Well,
themes.
yeah, I also think that's why, like, if you're looking to create something, why the, like, I guess flashcards, segmented ideas approach could be so effective, because then what you have for yourself is you say, like, okay, I need to tell this bit of the story differently. So do I, like, put a different flashcard here? Do I tell this flashcard in a different way?
Sure.
And I guess, if you're looking at editing your own work, it's a useful way for you to segment out your ideas so that, the killed darlings, as we're going to speak about on this weekend. So a few days ago's Death of the Reader with Rebecca Stafford.
Yeah.
You kind of just have to accept that sometimes cuts and changes have to be made. I've never heard Ryukishi repeat himself.
I've never heard Ryukishi repeat himself, after all. Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think that all in all, despite despite me not expecting it to be this way, I've come to the end and realized that Higurashi is also a story about storytelling.
Yeah, of course. Sure. Less directly, but yeah. It's all part of the When They Cry franchise, right? Like,
Exactly.
it all works.
And either that means that Ryukishi speaks a creative language that I understand, or I'm completely delusional and wrong.
No, I mean, personally, I don't see Higurashi as a story about storytelling. There are elements there, but I don't think of it as kind of as strongly and cohesively as you do, clearly. But that's because I'm also, when I think about stories, I'm less interested in trying to piece everything together as a whole and more thinking about, so if this story was written first, like, what was the point when they wrote it? And then what was the point when they wrote the expansion to that thought?
Yeah.
So I don't think of them both about storytelling.
No.
I
don't think Higurashi was written about storytelling.
Okay.
But
okay, sure.
I think it's more that, like, my takeaway from both stories has coalesced into this one idea about storytelling, where, obviously the text of Higurashi is very much about friendship, how the characters interact with each other and all that stuff that we've addressed plenty.
All the good stuff.
I was just really impressed, and why I'm bringing it up in the post-edit is that I've now realized how compatible the ideas that I didn't think I saw in Higurashi were.
Sure.
Now that I've kind of gone back over it.
I can probably agree with that they are more compatible than they seem at first glance.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was my experience going to Umineko as well, because one of the weird things that happened to me, this is just a little anecdote.
Yeah.
When I wrote Umineko, was that I was focused entirely on the kids. When I read it the first time, I was like, okay, I need to be taking mental notes about these kids' relationships with each other and with their parents. But even with all of those discussions about the inheritance and Kinzo going mad and stuff, I was really not taking any of that in because I'd read Higurashi. My assumption was right. So these adults are here to add flavor, but the story is really about the kids. It's about George and Shannon's love and and Canon and Jessica and
arguably
Bella.
True.
And at the end of the story and looking back on it, 100%. But my lens of looking through the Higurashi framework was let's look for all the stuff that's about the power of friendship, when really I should have been paying attention to everything else about real life and adults' responsibilities and money, where I really wasn't paying attention to any of that stuff. It went completely over my head, all this stuff about the adults' troubles. Until I want to say episode 2, when Rosa comes into the focus. But most of that did not care about when I first read, just because that's how Ryukishi kind of primed me,
I think that's fair.
Yeah, that's how it happens.
I don't know. I guess that's kind of all I have to say for the moment. I'm sure, as always, we will have innumerable things to say about this going forward.
I always have something to say about Higurashi. I just don't know what I can add to this playthrough that will not feel out of the blue, or that I haven't already iterated upon 1,000 times. We know that this thing got me out of a dark place. We know that it taught me how to fucking talk to people, which is the craziest thing in the world to me. Taught me how to love storytelling and love creative works. It's what got me interested in the arts. This story has done so much for me, and I feel like I've already kind of gone over all of that. You know, we've gone through this entire story, fully voice acted, which is insane. And we've
So,
come out the other side stronger.
I think what'd be good, we might take a break for a week to get ourselves ready for the anime as we continue on. If you wanted to drop us in the comments, tell us a little bit about what this stretch of stuff means to you, what Higurashi means to you, and of course, if you're going to talk about Umineko stuff, spoiler wrap it.
Rot 13.
Rot 13.
Yeah. Let us know how Higurashi changed your life. Go for that.
Well, let us know how it didn't and why it's shit and why.
Tell us why we're wrong.
Why
Tell
we
us-
should just read Danganronpa instead.
Yeah. God, please no. It's all about despair, Felix. It's about hope and despair. It's just like Ryukshi's writing. It's two opposite things brought together, hope and despair. No, done with you. Get out of here.
And
you
let us
stupid stuff bear.
let us know how you think. If you want to hear more about murder mystery, about crime fiction, Death of the Reader is where we're at the moment. That's also coming out on this channel.
Maybe go watch the VOD or whatever from the Last Express thing that we did, because that was cool.
It was cool.
I hope.
But otherwise, I guess we will see you next time.
Yeah, see you next time.